It's absolutely brilliant what I did with these closet doors I got for free from my local buy and sell group. I removed the good door on each side and gave it a quick sand, then I wiped it clean and applied primer. I taped off a few sections with painter's tape and applied black acrylic paint to the bottom and top sections and in the middle. Once dry, I painted the yellow in the middle for a buckle, and then I did a second coat of black on the top and the bottom. There was a lot of waiting for each coat to dry in between painting. I did a second coat of the red and added blue near the bottom. I removed the tape at the top and I added white acrylic paint on the remaining primed section. I made sure to do a second coat of paint for all of the colors, and I did a whole bunch of touch-up as well. I painted shoelaces in white and I did touch-ups throughout. I cut shapes out of felt sheets and hot glued it onto the face. I even hot glued some gold chain in the middle section and added yellow felt detail on the top. Can you believe I turned these old giant doors into nutcrackers? Perfect for decorating your front porch this holiday season. I hope this inspires you to get creative with doors. Grab a pallet and turn it into something you'll be excited to have on your front porch this winter. I cut the edges with a cordless chainsaw, used a hammer to remove each piece of wood from the center, and then I pulled all the nails. I placed 4 boards together and drew the outline of a snowman. I roughly divided the board into 4 sections and made the bottom a bit bigger, going smaller as I moved my way towards the top. I cut the design out with a jigsaw, being careful to always cut away from myself. I cut an extra piece for the hat and 2 extra pieces for supports on the back. I quickly sanded everything. I secured everything together with a brad nailer and wood glue. I made a whitewash with white exterior paint and water and brushed it onto the snow part of the snowman. I wiped the extra paint off with a clean rag and then repeated the same process for the hat using black acrylic paint watered down. I added the bottom piece of the hat and secured it with wood glue and a brad nailer from both the front and back sides. I set it aside to dry and cut 9 rounds from a wood dowel, sanded the edges, painted them with the same black. Once dry, I attached them using hot glue, and then I cut a triangle shape with some scrap wood, painted it orange using an acrylic paint marker and paintbrush with water. I cut a piece of felt for the scarf, and now I've got a pair of snowmen that will stay alive all season long. I hope this inspired you to create your own long-lasting snowman out of pallets.
I was passing through Walmart and found the perfect start to my latest project, $2.50 for this rubber ball. But first I got to get is a base. I have this round one and it's going to be great. You can use a square piece of plywood, but I've got to use glue to hold the first ball to the base. This is construction adhesive. You can use anything you want. I put it to the base and the ball, and then I'm going to place it on there. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is not going to hold it in place. You're right. But the next step is to grab some expanding foam, especially the bright white. That is what we definitely need for this project. Once we get it all glued up, what we got to do is go around the base with the expanding foam. Not too much. We don't want it to expand and push the ball away from the base. But if you know expanding foam, it is sticky, and it's going to be great to hold it down while giving it a firm base. Once it's held down, go up and down the sides and all around, and that's going to stick right to the ball, and it's going to look like snow, which is a great start to our project. I also almost forgot, we have to get a black ornament, take the top off, and this is going to be like the vest or the gumdrop that goes up and down on the snowman. So we're going to put that in place while the foam is still sticky. It will stick there, just check on it. Now it's time for the second layer. We're going to grab a smaller ball and put that on top. Once we get the foam on that, it's time to go to a third one. Now I got this one for only $1. We're going to cover Spidey up here real quick, but we're going to finish off doing the second layer. Always put a layer of the expanding foam down between the two because it's so sticky, it's going to hold it in place. Once we get it all foamed up across the front and everything, what we got to forget though is make sure we get some eyes made. We got to make the eyes, mouth, and the nose. I took some little round pegs, painted them black to look like the coal that goes on the face. Go ahead and paint it on the top and the sides, and then what we're going to do is put it in place. Now it's a little tricky to make sure we get the eyes right where we need them. Take your time, but you stick it right in there, and I promise they're not going anywhere. They're going to stay right in place. When you're doing the mouth, start at the very bottom one, put that one in place, and then we'll go up to the cheeks. Start on the left side, then go to the right, and then you're going to fill it in right in between. I took a piece of wood, painted it orange, and sharpened it on the tip, and that's going to hold it right in place. Now it's time for the most important part, and that's that top hat. I cut out this wood round on a little 16th inch piece of plywood, took a planter, glued it in place. Don't worry, the glue's going to stick out a little bit, but we can always clear that off. Once it dries though, we can touch it up with a little more black paint. Now we've got that top hat made, let's go ahead and put it in place. That foam is still sticky, we can just set it right there. Now we got to decorate the hat, put on a scarf, and here it is. We got our little snowman and it's ready to go. Once that foam dries, it is solid to the touch. It's not sticky anymore. I think our snowman turned out really good. And the great thing is you can put him outside because it's going to be waterproof, especially with that foam. Now with his hat and his scarf, he's ready to go. I hope you enjoyed this project. For this super cool Christmas project, we're going to start with a concrete form tube. 12 inches will be just perfect for this. You can pick this up at any hardware store. First thing we got to do is make a base. This is 18 inches by 18 inches. We're going to find the middle at 9 inches and mark an X. We're going to use this starting point to go 1 inch on one side and 1 inch on the other. That's how we're going to measure for the legs of the Nutcracker that we're going to put together. Now, this is the hard part. We've got to drill through the base 2 screws for each leg in order to hold it together. Once you do this, we got to put it upside down on top of the legs. That way we can screw through the bottom and into the legs. This will make it nice and sturdy. Once we got it secure, go ahead and turn it back over and you can see it's super strong. Next, we got to take the form tube that we have and cut out a piece of wood that'll fit on the inside. Once you mark it, cut just on the inside of the line, and that way it will form right over the tube. Once you got the cutout done, go ahead and drill 2 holes, 1 for each leg. Once you get these pilot holes drilled, you can go ahead and put the 2.5 inch screws in. This will make it super strong and it holds it. Next thing we got to do is put the tube on top of the wood. We're going to slide it right into place and drill some pilot holes that are going to go through the tube and into the side of the wood. Put some screws in that'll hold it in place. That'll again strengthen this right up and keep it where we need it. Next, let's go down on our 33 inch tube down 11 inches. That's where we're going to put one of the arms. Our arms are made out of 3.5 inch PVC pipe. I picked up this foam piece from the Dollar Tree. Go ahead and slide it back and forth and you're going to run some glue around it and that's going to hold it in place. On top of the pipe, we're going to put a cap. This is going to be like the shoulder blade, part of the uniform. Put it right at that 11 inch mark, take some screws and drill it through and it'll hold it in place. Once we got the arms on, it's time to prime it. Primer is so important on a project like this. You want the paint to stick and look good when it goes on. Primer is the way to do it. We're going to go through and prime everything on this project. It'll cover up the lettering, and we're also going to do the same for the wood, legs, and the base. Make sure you get it nice and even on there. While we're waiting for the primer to dry, I went ahead and grabbed a 5-gallon bucket that I painted black, and I started putting some gold bands around it. This is the top of the helmet. This one's going to get a shorter, skinnier band. I used some hot glue and put it right around the edge and go all the way around, putting the band in place. We can do this all the way around. Be careful not to burn yourself. Just put it as you go. On the bottom, I'm going to use a little bit of a thicker band. I want it to stand out a little bit. We're going to do it just like we did with the top. Put a little bit of hot glue and just work your way around. Make it nice and even, put it on. Once you get it all put on and ready to go, it's time to bring the project back in and look at that nice white primer on it. Gives you a blank canvas to start. Again, we're going to go down 11 inches. Mark it around because that's going to be where our head goes. The rest of it, which is 22 inches, will be our body. And this is where it gets exciting. We're going to start painting. Again, this is the head, so we're going to paint all the way around using our paint. Color choice. I use a foam brush. I get it to where it comes on and goes on nice and even. You're going to need multiple coats, so go ahead and just put it on kind of nice and light. Make it look good. Next we got to do is we got to work on his boots. we need to make sure the line is straight across. So I use the square to make a line across, make sure they're both even. Once I do that, it's time to paint his jeans. And those are going to be blue. I went with a kind of a darker blue and put it on. As you can see, the first coat is not the best, but we're going to use multiple coats. 2 should do it. If you want to go with 3, go for it. Once we get this all on right where the boots are, it's time to put his laces on. We don't want them boots falling off. Again, use the same lace that he used for the top of the helmet, which is the bucket, and put some X's down there. We want to use some hot glue to put those on. Remember, go easy. We don't want to burn ourselves on that hot glue. Just make an X. Don't worry about the ends. I went ahead and painted some gold-colored wood pieces that I got from the hobby store. Put those on, and we're going to go up and down the boot with it and give it just some nice design. Next, whenever paint joins another color, we want to put a ribbon around it. Just makes it look good and makes his uniform look spectacular. We're going to do this around his neck and then around his shoulder pads. We're going to go ahead and put some garland on. We got this from the Dollar Tree. Nice and inexpensive. Next, it's time to put that hair on that goes right over his ears. This one is from the Dollar Tree, and it's actually a dust mop. So I trimmed it to fit, put some hot glue on it, worked my way up, and glued it as I went up. And I can't believe how spectacular it turned out. It looks so good. Just goes right on there and sticks perfectly. Now it's time for the nose. Little piece of cut wood, hot glued on with a triangle look, and there it is. Looks great. Next, I outlined his whiskers. That's going to go on there for his mustache, and then we're going to use some black paint to paint it in. Go nice and slow on this. We want to make it look good. This is what's going to grab everybody's attention. Now that cut piece of dust mop that I used on the side of the head, I had a little bit left over. I'm going to use it for his goatee on the bottom. Now it's time to put him in place, give him his helmet, and look at that. This is our Nutcracker. I think I'm going to call him Blue Eyes because of the spectacular way we got his eyes to look. He just looks amazing standing there. And guess what? He turned out to be 6 foot tall. He stands guard over the Christmas tree and all the presents that'll come. I hope this inspired you to build your own life-size Nutcracker doll. This is no ordinary pallet project. What we're going to do, the first step, is we got to pull all these boards off. They're actually easier than it looks. All you got to do is give a little bit of pressure with a crowbar, and these nails pop right out. We want to pull out the big ones and the small boards. First step, though, after that is to get 2 long 1x3 6-foot long boards. We're going to put these in an L pattern, but we need to put some glue down. That is perfect. It actually holds boards together better than nails. Once we get that glued down, we're going to put this in an L shape just like that, and then we're going to use a few nails to hold it in place. I use 1.5-inch nails. They're perfect, and they go in just right. Once we get that all glued together, we're going to mark 12 inches from the bottom. That's going to be our starting place for our first board. Now, I'm going to start with a wider board right here. We're going to set this across, and then we're going to alternate to a smaller board. Again, going after that to a wider board, from wide, small, alternating all the way up. Now, we're going to lay all these across, but these are not cut to the size we want. Once we get these laid out, what we want to do is mark at the base the 24 inches. That is going to be our first cut, but we're going to lay a straight board across at an angle from the 24 inches up to the top, and then we're going to mark it all the way across. What this does is this gives us a perfect angle to make our pallet Christmas tree. Once we get it marked out, we're going to put it over to 22.5 degrees, which happens to follow the marks all the way up. Once we cut these, we're going to cut that first one. Now remember, every cut we do, we need to make a duplicate because we're going to do 2 sides of the tree. Starting back at the bottom one again, we're going to use the brad nails and put it into place. Doesn't take much, just put them in there. Now we need to space it. I use my pencil as a spacer and it worked perfect. We don't want to just bunch them up right next to each other. Once we get the first row done, we need to flip it over. To make it easy, take that, it's really light because that pallet wood is not that heavy, and we're going to lay it across the table. Again, I'm going to use a clamp on this side just to hold it in place, and then we're going to line up the boards with the first set we put in. This goes much faster on the second row than the first row because the first row is what is like our template and holds it in place. Once we get these all brad nailed down, just like we did with the first ones, we are going to take a drill bit and randomly just put drill bits and holes all across the pallet tree. Once we get these random holes just put all inside there, we're going to grab us some white or colored lights. It's a preference. Make sure you get the ones that can plug in from the back though, just in case you run out of room. Take those lights and you're going to staple them down. Now be careful with the staples. You want to make sure that you don't go through the wires. Now remember those holes that we drilled? Stick the light right through there. And again, use the staples to hold them in place. We're going to go up and around and all around our pallet Christmas tree. Now we're going to put it in place on that boring corner in the house. And look at this. We're going to light it up and watch just that magic come alive. Wasn't it great to be able to upcycle some pallets and make it into a Christmas tree and turn that boring corner into a work of art? I hope you enjoyed this pallet Christmas tree as much as we did. Thank you for watching Home Talk, and we'll catch you next time.